Hello everyone.
I'm your host, Aisha.
And I'm your host, Ka-Rin.
And this is
Raize the Standard.
Have you ever wondered what it was like growing up in church?
Wow, crazy. I actually grew up in church.
What?
I grew up with you.
What?
Yeah.
You grew up with me?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today we are talking about what it's like to grow up in church and our church experiences as children. And what it means to even just cover our kids as, they grow up in church too.
Yes. What it's taught me, honestly, is to guard my heart, guard my ears, and mind my business. 100%. I think that if I had not grown up with praying parents, a praying pastor, a praying family, I think that I probably would be all over the place. I would be everywhere doing whatever. And even as a kid, even covered, I was doing crazy stuff.
We all go.
I was doing crazy
we
stuff.
all go through and I like to touch bases on what you just said, because you said even in growing up in church, you even, kind of like strayed away a little bit, if you will. Right? And I think that also, like, people, outsiders, right? People who haven't grown up in church with us, they automatically assume that we also got it. We got it all together.
We got it together, yeah.
Right? But growing up in church, even, growing up in church, I love how you said we were being covered by our parents. And of course, it pays to have praying parents. I can't stress that enough. If you have children, pray for your kids. And even if you don't, if you know kids, pray for your kids, because the world is crazy. Being covered, what it taught me, right, growing up in church, is that you're not gonna have it all together. Growing up in church, I used to think, let me just give you a backstory. When I was in middle school, I used to think, because my parents, or even just from young, because my parents were Christian, I automatically was Christian, right? And so, of course, naturally, if you grow up in church and you're a child, of course, you're going to, go through those stages as far as, oh, I'm Christian too, my parents,
it's
I go to church.
It's a inheritance.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an inheritance, right? Christianity is an inheritance.
Yes.
It kind of is in a sense.
It is. But
it kind of
train up a child in the way that they should go.
Exactly. But our parents really lived by that, training up a child in the way that they should go. But just being as a young, a young kid, thinking, oh, okay, I'm Christian, I'm in it, and things like that, until one day the Lord really woke me up.
Yeah.
And he said, and I was really young. I was in the 6th grade, I think I was in the 6th grade.
Oh, yeah, I was like, what, 12?
I was in the 6th grade. And I was like 11, 12, yeah. And we were in church. And my parents, we often always have these like little devotionals as a family. My parents always used to grab us and they say, all right, come on, we're going to get a devotional. We always got the Bible. We always talked about what the scriptures meant. We always talked about Jesus and who he was to us. That's how it was for us as a family, right? And
still is.
It still is. Exactly. We still do that, even in our adult years. But being a kid, we always kind of didn't like it. We was like, ugh, please, I don't want to be here.
Okay, wait. Let me speak to that, because when I was younger, right? Like, I was like, okay, I love this. I love doing this. I love doing this. But I think not even high school. Whoa. I think college was where I was like, all right, we do this at school. We went to
there were times,
so we was like,
right.
We went to school.
And
I was like, we doing this at school, and we doing this here, and we doing that.
Yeah. There were times when I thought my parents would get up There were times when I thought they would stop doing it. Even in that, we would still, gather each other and pray as a family.
It just wasn't the forum, sitting down forum.
Exactly.
Lord have mercy. It
That's
wasn't
what my mother called it, a forum. She called it a forum.
Like, this is business.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in a way that, we would sit down and talk to each other and just be like, oh, what do you guys think of it? We would sit down, we would pray, and then our parents would give us some lessons.
Before this video,
and then boom. Oh, snap. Okay.
But anyway,
yes.
So back to what I was saying about growing up in what it has taught me. So I came to the Lord really like at a young age because he really woke me up. I was in church, and this was when we was way back when in 644, and I was sitting there and I was kind of dozing off. The loudness of the organ, whoever the organist was that day, the loudness of the organ sounded like a trumpet sound, right? A little backdrop. My mother was, when we was having these devotionals, she was telling us about heaven and hell. And so she was telling us the real rawness of heaven and hell. And, that there is no coming back from it, right? That once you make your choice, once this is it, once you live down here, you're making your choice right now just to choose where you're going as far as, heaven and hell. But moving forward in Sunday, the organist was really loud and it sounded like a trumpet. I got so scared. I said, what? I said, wait, is he coming back right now? Is he coming? I got scared, Ka-Rin.
I bet she did too.
I did. I got scared. So I said, is he coming back right now? Is he coming back? Like, I just really got scared.
It'd be like that.
And then, I just kept looking around. And that was one of my wake-up calls as a young girl. That was one of my wake-up calls. I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do I get into heaven? Like, how do I get saved? Because I don't want to go to hell. Like, I really don't want to go to hell. I got serious about God that time. And then we came home from church, and my mother asked me, she asked me something. I don't remember how it led to it, but we were in her room. And so she said, do you want to be saved? And I said, yeah, I want to be saved. He said, yeah. And so she said, do you want to be saved? And I said, yes, I want to be saved. After that, I took Jesus seriously. And looking back at it now, being in the 6th grade, I took God seriously. And I said, like, I prayed every night. I would talk to the Lord. He would talk back to me. I would love when he talked back to me. I would read his word. We had like this, and as a kid, as an adult, I look back and I'm like, this is so cute. We had this children's Bible in my house. And so I would read that thing faithfully. At first, I really didn't care about it. But because it had drawings in
we
it.
were drawing all. I was about to say, we were drawing all in that thing.
We really didn't care about it. It
goodness.
was drawing. But then when I got serious, I would be so mad about them drawings. I'd be like, man, I want to read this Bible. But then at that point of being, looking at this kid's Bible, I'm like, this is not the real stuff.
Yeah.
As a kid, a 12-year-old, looking at a children's Bible, I wanted the real stuff. I'm like, wait, how do I want meat already and I'm a babe in Christ?
I was like,
like, I'm looking at this like this is a joke.
It's not fulfilling. How I came to Christ was it's kind of similar to your story, but in a different way.
Go ahead.
So I grew up Christian as always, and I thought, okay, my parents' relationship, my relationship, I can coast through. I can get heaven. I can get to heaven on them. Like through them, through their anointing, through their blessings, I could get to heaven. So at church, our pastor had had decided to gather all the teens and all the 12 to 13, the preteens and the teens. And she had us in a nice little circle. And she said to us, she was like, don't y'all know that, she's like, heaven is real, hell is real. Hard. She told us all this stuff. She was like, once God comes back, it's like he's gonna let all calamity loose on the earth, all this, and it would take a scaring me to get, myself together. Like it would, no, like, because I grew up on the listening to like pastors say, oh, the land of milk and honey, and I was like, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good, but I never got to the nitty gritty. I never got to the hell is real. Stop playing around. Like you stop playing around, and even as a kid, like kids are not doing crazy stuff, right? But it's still, this is still a mindset that you have to have. That is like, all right, so you don't bring it into your adulthood and then you start touching worse stuff. Because in your childhood, boom, you didn't have that mindset of, all right, let me stop doing this small stuff. Like, let me stop lying. Lying turns into what? Lying turns into cheating. Lying turns into stealing. All of that good stuff. And it's like, if you don't stop it at the root, then it's not, you're going to continue it and it's going to grow bigger. But our pastor told us heaven and hell is real. And I was kind of scared at that time, but I was like, I wasn't really too scared. I wasn't serious about it. But after that, like that night, I had a dream. This is a kid's dream, so mind you, I had a dream that a dinosaur ripped the top of the building of our house off. And he was looking into the building. Aisha, please. But this one, he ripped the building. Like at first he was walking, right? Yeah. But this one was where he rips the top off the building, and I'm in the building, and he's just looking at me, and I'm like, why? Like, I'm scared, but I'm like, why is he just staring at us? He puts the top back, right? And then I look out through the window and I see the sun, right? And then like the moon, and it's like an eclipse. And I'm looking at it, and then I'm like, what's going on? And like instantly in my head, I'm like, God's coming back. Like it was just such a random dream, but I was thinking in my head, I was like, God's coming back. Because it was like a big, it was an eclipse. Yeah, and it was eclipse, and it was a calamity just going on outside. And I was just like, wow, God's coming back. And then like from that moment on, like it was like just from that moment on, I was having less deranged dinosaur dreams and more, more real, like God is coming back dreams. Like, and of course, some of these dreams would include some of, the things that like from my childhood, like shows. God would have, some of my favorite characters come to me and be like, oh, God's coming back. Like, let's go, let's go get together. Let's get ready. Let's start preparing. And in my head, I kept saying to my mother, I was like, I'm having all these dreams and stuff. And I couldn't really bring them to her, because I'd be like, how would it sound to tell her that Zendaya from Shake It Up told me to get ready, to prepare for Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was thinking that these dreams are crazy. But then I started realizing that God was speaking to me through that stuff. And so until then, I was just having real dreams. And I would be telling my friends this stuff, and they would be like, oh, that's that religious stuff, whatever. And I had Christian friends. They knew I was Christian, but they would just be like, oh, some of them would just straight up be like, I don't do Christianity. It was like, I respect that you do it, but I'm not doing it. And we were too young for all of that mindset.
That's new age.
Yeah, I was like, we were way too young for that mindset.
And I had in middle school, and I love what you said, and I'm going to come back to it. When you said prepare, I love what you said, and we're going to come back because that's a big word, prepare. So I had a young friend in middle school, and I don't know if you remember her. I can't say her name because, but anyway, I had a friend, and she was a Muslim friend. And so I was very curious as to her faith, or her religion or whatever it was, right? I was really curious because I was like, because at that point in my life, I was like, all right, I know God is real, and I know that, but what makes her, I was just curious about other religions. I was just like, what makes her religion, what makes her follow her religion? Why is she, is it just cultural, because I knew she was Muslim.
Yeah.
We was at lunchtime and I asked her, I said, does your God, answer, does your God answer your prayers like he answers mine, right? Because every time I pray, God would answer he would literally just, and he listens to, when you're a babe in Christ, not even a babe in Christ, children, he loves when you pray. But yeah, I just asked her and she said her answer was confused. She was very confuzzled, not in a sense where she was like yes and no.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't like she didn't say yes and no, but she was like yes, but she wasn't sure in herself. You could see what she wasn't sure. Like, does he really answer my prayers? I don't know. Like, I'm just doing this because I'm a kid, right? I'm just, I just form know because exactly form of fashion, because I just grew up in this thing and I don't really know, if he really answers my prayers, even though she was a little headstrong about her religion. But but then I came home to I came home and I said, Mommy, does, like, why do we, I asked my mother about Allah and things like that. I was like, well, isn't Allah just another name for God?
Ooh,
so why don't we so why don't we, why is there like a big huge thing divide. About exactly a divide, right? I don't remember what she said too well, but she said no. It's just things like that. And that just went back to, when you was telling your story about your friends and how they, you would talk to them about your dreams and they would be like, I don't do that religious stuff. It just made me, it reminded me of that story of my friend who was Muslim, my Muslim friend. But I love what you said about in your dreams, how you said, prepare. This
that was a big thing.
Is a preparation. If you are not getting yourself prepared, what are you doing? Our parents always taught us about spirits, right? They always separated the spirit from the person, because sometimes, especially when you're not rooted in God, it's just hard to maintain. It mostly has taught me how to handle the kids who are in our church today, whether they grew up in church or whether they didn't grow up and they're just coming in church, because they are growing up in church as they're coming, or their parents are newcomers to the church, new to the faith, or whatever it may be. But it's taught me a lot about compassion, patience, kindness. These are huge. I'm so big on kindness. A lot of people and what I've noticed, how people handle me. And I'm not saying, not even just me, but me and my sister or my family as a whole, how they handle us, because they think, to be tough is to be strong. You gotta be tough and you gotta be mean to be strong, and you gotta be mean to not be messed with, or and we go to church in the Bronx, so you already know that's a but that's a mindset in the Bronx. Everything is a spirit.
We've grown up
people
with
we've grown up with. We just experiences we've had. Interactions. A lot of them weren't kind. Whether they knew it or not. But growing up Christian as a kid to adult, transitioning to adult, I've realized there's boundaries. And my parents have been teaching us about boundaries from the get-go.
Day one.
We just never knew what to call them.
Yeah, whether they said boundaries or not. They was like, don't let this happen, don't let that happen.
We never knew what to call them. Right.
Yeah.
We just never knew what to call them. But I'm very big on how I handle the kids of in my church today, kids in general, whether they are in my church or whether I'm teaching them outside of my church. I'm just very big on how I handle them, because I want them to see Christ and how Christ handles, children. I want them to see Christ-like love, Christ-like behavior. And given, my overseer said something very key, right? She was preaching one time and she said something very key. She said, people are going to love you based on how they were loved. Sometimes they don't always know how to love you because of how they were loved, and the way that they were loved wasn't even right. So that's one of the compassion things that we took from growing up, you know, and our experiences with not so nice people. What I've noticed is when we were kids, people would stop talking to us because they would have a problem with our parents.
Yeah. Oh,
I hated that. All I wanted as a kid was a strong adult to just come and love me up no matter what.
Yeah. And from a kid's perspective, whose parents weren't messy and told us everything, because our parents did not tell us when, you know, this so-and-so had a problem with them. We did not know anything.
We didn't know, but kids
so from
just know.
Kid's perspective, not even. From a kid's perspective, from my perspective, a lot of the people who would love on me one Sunday, you know, all of a sudden, nothing. They would say absolutely nothing. I would give them a hello. I would give them a hug. I would be my normal, you know, kid self. I would just be, you know, ready to love on them, ready to see them. I'm happy to see you. I didn't see you in a whole week. You know, I'm a kid. I'm excited to see you. And then, boom, all of a sudden, something that happened in the backdrop, now they're upset and they're treating a child, a literal child, like, you know, like crap. And it's like, that's why, you know, even now, even if I have, you know, I've exchanged words with like 2 people and they have a kid and I'm working with their kid, I'm not gonna sit there and treat their kid like, you know, I'm not gonna treat the kid like how I want to treat the parent. Like, I'm upset with you, but why would I treat your kid? Your kid is innocent.
Your kids don't know any better. They don't know what's going on. And one thing that I really that really gets me, right, is when adults have adult conversations around kids. Kids feed off of what you are talking about. They feed off what you say. They feed off your spirits. They feed off of these things. When you're dealing with, you know, not even a broken person who has kids, right? And they start talking to their kids about a certain adult because of an interaction they had one day. And so now that kid is turning their backs on that adult because they think they, you know, they're making their parents proud by staying away from that adult or treating them a certain way. One thing the Lord has taught me is, and my parents, they definitely taught me, Lord has probably taught me through my parents, right? Just keep loving them. Even if you don't receive that love back, just keep loving them, because it will come back to you. I kid you not, it will come back to you. I faced a lot of challenges. Even me and my sister, we teach, right? Not even just in children's church, but even we work together, right? Even working together, we notice adults, you know, just whispering little things, sowing seeds of discord in children. And, you know, we just notice certain things, right? And so the kids turning their backs on us. And of course, it hurt at first. But then when you think of the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture meaning, okay, he fights every battle for us, 1. 2, this won't even last always. Everything we see won't last always. This is not going to be all that, you know, it's not going to be forever, right? So you think about your heart. You're like, okay, that's done, Lord, but, and I didn't like the way so-and-so treat me, but, and then when you forgive them at the end of the day, the Lord, he is ever so gracious and ever so kind. He will place it on your heart to pray for them, and then you keep it moving.
Keep it moving. The situations are small.
Moving, and you're
don't
just like,
dwell on the small
don't
stuff.
dwell on it, because guess what? At the end of the day, this is temporary. This is not it.
Exactly.
I'm living to live again.
Exactly. And I used to dwell on small stuff. Well, I still kind of do. But I used to dwell on small stuff like crazy. I'd be like, oh my gosh, so-and-so just said this to me. So-and-so just did that. So-and-so said that. So-and-so, didn't do this. So-and-so didn't do that. And I would look back on it, and I'm looking back on it now, and I'm like, hey, that was a small situation. Like, why was I pressed for? Like, what was I pressed for? Like, even though in that moment, that was a disrespect. That was a disregard for your character. That was a disregard for you and as a person. But it's still a small thing. Like, it's still so small that you don't even have to worry about it later on. Like, you're looking at half of the stuff that I was mad about. I don't even know what I was mad about. Literally. I know who I was mad at, sure. Yes. But I don't know what it was about. Like,
because it's how they made you feel in that moment. Exactly. It's how. But sometimes the Lord, He's either testing you. He's either
that's the one
using this test to strengthen you. So don't even fret, because the only one that matters is Him.
Yeah.
Matters is Him. When you get to a point where He's the only opinion that matters, it's the reality of it. Don't make yourself go crazy. Of course, ask the Lord, anything we do, right? As far as all He wants is just our hearts. That's all He wants. If you just give Him your heart, if you give Him your day, if you give Him your life, if you just trust Him, right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path, right? So if you just trust Him with the little things, just the little things, not saying life is little, but just saying, all right, Lord, what do you want me to watch today? What do you want me to read today? What do you want me to do today? What do you want me to say today? If you just trust Him with all of those things, I kid you not.
How were we preserved as kids, and how it helped us later on?
That's good. How were we preserved as kids? So we did touch a little bit on that. As far as having praying parents. Not even just parents, right? We have some real pure-hearted adults in our lives who actually do pray for us and who actually do care for us, right? I'm gonna say one of the ways that I was preserved, because in high school I strayed away. I'm just gonna say I really didn't care. I was like, look, I'm gonna try this, that, and that, and that. I didn't do drugs or sex or nothing, but I was close. Look, sin is sin.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, just having praying parents, right? My parents weren't always they weren't helicopter parents. No. Our parents weren't helicopter parents.
Not the slightest. Some examples of why they weren't is I would straight up tell my friends, I'd be like, look, I'll go on the phone with my mom. My friends would ask me, hey, let's go to the mall. I'd be like, all right, let me ask my mom. Call my mom and say, Mom, tell them you said no, we can't go.
Mom, can you pick me up? I'm scared.
So I can go back home.
I had the same story. I kid you not.
And my mom would be like, hey, why you don't go to the mall with them? Why you don't go to the mall? Why you don't go to the park with them?
She's like, go to the mall. Go to the mall.
Do I look like I want to go? No, I'm joking.
Just tell them. Just tell me
you said no. Here,
tell me no. Just tell, right? I would give my
tell me no.
We had the same exact experiences, 2 different times.
2 different lives.
I kid you not, 2 different
times.
I was in high school before she was, and I said,
but we was good. Yes.
So our parents have gone through things themselves, right? Because they went through things themselves as far as, living life. Our mother never grew up in church. She didn't know anything about God when she was younger. She said one time a lady brought her to church and that was it. Right? And our father, I don't know if he grew up in church, but he also strayed away, and he was like,
Jamaican.
Right, starch Jamaican.
You talking about he's not
Oh
starch?
my gosh.
Okay.
Our
Okay.
father is starch Jamaican.
Oh, okay.
He tries. But just them going through their own experiences in life, right? They really didn't want to come down with the hammer like, oh, don't do this, oh, don't do that. And that's also where the devotionals came into play too, because they would teach us about their lives and their past experiences. They held nothing back, especially my mother.
Man, she would just be very candid with us, very straightforward.
She was very.
And if she wasn't, I think half the stuff that we were doing would have been 10 times worse.
Oh man.
Like, to me, bad was me having like a potty mouth. But to some kids or to some people, bad was, you know, it was drugs, it was sex, it was all of that. But we were so covered that bad to us was just cussing and, you know, just having potty mouths and saying foul stuff. Like, that don't even scratch the surface.
Nope.
And I knew some of my friends and I knew some of the people around me were doing way worse things. But in my head, I'm thinking I'm doing bad things too. You know, I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm just as bad as them.
Yeah, disgrace. Gone bad at such an early age? Where's your mom?
But anyway, like I was saying before, yeah, our parents weren't really helicopter parents. No. They would want us to experience stuff, right? As far as our regular teenage lives, right? Most of the times, I think my mom knew a lot because she would pick up in the spirit as far as...
definitely.
But she wouldn't really talk to me about it as far as... She would just pray.
Yeah. Straight up.
Our mother is a praying woman. Sometimes she would say some things like subliminally. She'd be like, all right, you know, is this what's going on?
Yeah.
But other than that, she would just pray.
I'd be mad because I'd be like, look, I thought I was being sneaky.
Bruh.
No. No.
But yeah, our parents weren't really helicopter parents. They wanted us to experience life. But because we heard their stories so much growing up, there were a lot of things we were like, we're not touching.
Oh yeah.
Also, our parents taught us about bloodline curses. Right? So my mother taught us about what's in our bloodline as far as the curses in our bloodline, like drinking, smoking, mental illness. So there was a lot of things, even though, you know, being out there as a Christian, trying certain things as a young Christian, because I knew right from wrong. I just was like, look, I don't even want to do this anymore. I'm just going to experience stuff, right? But I knew right from wrong, but there was just certain things I wouldn't touch. Because I didn't want... Exactly. I didn't want to be a statistic, one.
And I didn't want to be stuck
I didn't want
to
stuck doing something. I didn't want to, you know, be addicted to drugs and things like that. I wanted a life outside of what I seen in the Bronx, right? When you go to school in the Bronx, you see everything. You don't even have to just hear it from your parents. You see everything. I saw a lot. I saw kids strung out. I saw
coming into
pregnant
school
teenagers,
like that.
baby mama dramas, baby daddy dramas.
And we're like 14, 15, 16. Imagine looking back, that's a baby to me, and I'm not even that old.
Kids going through adult situations. What?
Adult
that's why covering your kids is so important.
So important.
Kids going through adult situations should not happen.
And then they see you going through stuff, and they think it's cute, but like, it's like, did you say to them, hey, that's not good? Or even if you did say it to them, did you make it look good to them? Like, what about your situation? Never let them see the, quote, good parts of your struggles. Because, like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, say you're a teen mom, right? And, you know, and your little sister sees you enjoying your time with your baby, and all she ever sees is the good part of you enjoying your baby. She never sees you breaking up at the crack of dawn with your baby. She never sees you, you know, your boobie sore because, you know, that baby got teeth now. She never sees, you know, you being sleep deprived or you know, almost
Not
falling
even
asleep,
that.
dropping the
Childcare.
baby. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness,
Money.
the cost of childcare. She never sees how much money and how hard you gotta work to get that. She never sees it. And she's looking at you and she's seeing your little Instagram page. She's like, oh, my sister and her baby's just so cute. I love this. Oh, let me get one too. Boom, she has a baby. Now she sees the side of it and she don't like it. And it's like, where do you go from there? That's just generational. Like, do you ever show your kids the opposite of the good? Like, do you ever show them the bad without just saying it? Like, you can say it one time, but do you show it to them? Do they see the bad stuff? Do they see not even just the bad stuff, but do they see the
like
real,
the smart,
the
wise,
raw,
like,
you know?
like just, you know, helping them make wise decisions. They wanted us to experience life as a teenager. One thing that I can say as far as growing up Christian, when you go to church once a week or maybe twice a week, because we went to church twice a week, Wednesday and Sunday, and sometimes occasionally when we had events, people automatically assume that you don't know much or that you don't know anything that because you haven't touched certain things. Because you haven't touched certain things, they think you haven't experienced life. But when you walk close with Jesus, right? When you walk so close with him, and this is our experience growing up and just having a relationship with the Lord, period. When you walk close with him, you appear to look perfect. You appear because he's perfect, right? So when you walk with him, you just appear to look perfect.
Well, to people, it seems like you're, you know, you think you are. And it's like, we didn't say that. They
think that we are
so
pious.
It's like, yeah, so it's like when you don't, you know, when you don't do, people have an idea of me or what they think is the quote perfect Christian or somebody who doesn't, you know, look like what they think they should look like, or they don't look like their sin, or they don't look like their struggles, or they don't look like their, you know, their issues. They think, oh, that person is, you know, what I aspire to be, but you don't see what people are going through. You don't see what people are, you know, thinking unless they say it.
I think there's something greater that's going to come out of us, right? As we walk closer with Jesus, as we go through our daily, you know, our as we walk through this journey of life with God. When you read his word, you'll learn those certain spirits. You'll be able to approach them differently, right? It's taken me all of my adult life. I've made so many mistakes and I still keep learning from the same mistakes. I just keep approaching them differently, thinking that I'm going to get the same or a different outcome out of them. And I don't. But when you do it with the Lord, I kid you not, it's going to be greater than what you try to do. One of the things that I didn't appreciate about growing up Christian is that people automatically assumed that we didn't know much.
Yeah.
Right? Or that they just like, oh, what do you guys know about da-da-da-da-da-da-da?
Hi guys, so da-da-da-da. Yes, I did that.
You know, the conversations that we've had with people, and looking back at it now, a lot of people didn't want to talk to us as much because they thought they would taint us. Which
that was the adults.
It's a good and a bad type of a lot of the adults.
Yeah.
Which is a good and a bad thing, right? As far as they didn't
It's a good thing because they didn't expose us to things by accident.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Not even just exposing us. They kept our ear gates.
We need community. We need community.
Exactly.
We need, to talk to people. We need to have those conversations. We needed a space. And oh my goodness, that's so good. It's what's it called? Sorry, I forgot what I was gonna say. We needed that community. We needed that space, and that's why what we do with children's church is try to foster that community within the children. Because when we were younger, there's a lot of things that I do regret. Not regret so much. There was positives and negatives to what I did when I was younger. I would stay away from everybody. Like I would stay away from
people. We would stay
everybody.
Away from.
And I would just be like, I don't want to.
Didn't love them.
Yeah, definitely.
We loved them.
Yeah, because there was a group of girls I grew up with in church. Love them, still love them to this day. Love them when we were younger. But I stayed away because I thought that, if I stay away from people, I'll stay out of trouble. If I stay away from this, I'll stay out of trouble. But little did I know that, their presence in my life could have, made a huge difference, or in my, in my development, like in a good way.
That.
And it could have, it could have benefited me. So it could have benefited me so well to talk to them. And it's not like I didn't talk to them, and it's not like I didn't have positive interaction. I just stayed away from a lot of people, because I was just like, I've had experiences where I would want to open myself up, and then I would get backlash. So I was like, all right, let me just stay away from everybody. Not in a bad way where I was like, oh, I'm not talking to you. I'm not your friend. I'm not talking to you. I'm not doing this and that. Yeah.
I can attest to what Ka-Rin is saying, because as a kid, right, I had my friend group in church. I stuck to my same people.
Yeah.
Every Sunday, stuck to my same people. And if they weren't there, I would stick with my family. That's it. But I did try to expand, as far as I loved everybody, I went to everybody. But when you come off as too jovial or too happy, a lot of people tend to back away. Sometimes from my experiences, when I came off too jovial, a lot of people thought I didn't have a brain of my own.
Oh, yeah, that part,
I got that from people. Like, oh, she's just Aisha. She doesn't,
And I be thinking that too. I'm not gonna hold you, but
cliques is real. It's a real thing. It shouldn't happen. I come heavily against it. As an adult, I come heavily against it. Do not do cliques, please. But as a kid, I seen people, they just mesh together, right? Misery loves company, right? When you have a certain spirit, and my overseer says it all the time when she preaches, not all the time, but she says it most of the time when she preaches. She says when there's certain spirits that are the same, they're just gonna automatically drawn together. They're just gonna click together. They're just gonna that's probably why I did not have as many friends. I was different.
That just wasn't our spirit. That
unique.
Just wasn't,
And a lot of the times when I had friends, they would try and manipulate me. And I didn't take too kindly to it. I really didn't like it. Even though they thought that I wouldn't notice, and sometimes I wouldn't notice. And that's just by the grace of God, because honestly, sometimes he would just keep me from stuff. He would just he would make me blinded to certain things, so that he would keep my heart. Because if I did see certain things, I would be like, like I would probably really get upset.
Okay, Dochi. Go ahead.
It's just certain things that the Lord, he that's how we were really covered. We were covered by prayer. We were covered through prayer. The Lord, he's covered us. Even if our parents weren't praying, he would just be covering us.
That's crazy. Because it's like that with our mother's testimony. Is she was covered throughout her entire childhood. Like even though there was trials and tribulations, it's like she was still covered because God had something in her from a baby. So it's like she grew up, even though things happened, even though bad things happened, God still covered her and led her steps to him.
She didn't die.
I'm done. No. And then it's like with us, we noticed a lot of the stuff as far as we were covered, even by God. It's even like we had a lot of people praying for us, and we had a lot of people who had our best interest at heart. And it's like God still covered us from a lot of stuff, even though we were doing crazy stuff, even when we were, just acting a fool. And there's so many situations that I can count on my hand that I was not supposed to be in. I was in people's basements. I wasn't doing nothing, but I was in people's basements, in their house. I was just, in my mind, I'm thinking these are innocent situations that could have turned crazy. Because even now as an adult, I look back on it and I'm like, Dad, this girl said that this was happening to her in her house, and I was there.
Yeah.
I was there. And it's like, God really had my back because like a lot of, man, I could have been dead. I could have been somewhere on somebody's street strung out on something. I could literally, there's a whole lot that could have happened that God did not allow. And that is the crux of growing up Christian. It's like, even though you're put in situations, even though, you know, the bad things happen to you, you still you're still covered. You're still covered under the blood. And it's like, even bad things happen, it's like God uses that to show you. It's either you was being hard-headed and you knew full and well, and God's using that to show you, all right, let's move on from that. Now that you had your taste of that, remove yourself from it. You don't need any more troubles. And if you continue doing the troubles, God is still going to have your back.
He's very patient.
He's still going to have your back. He's still going to have, you know, he's still going to have you. He's still going to cover you. But it's like, how long are you going to sit there and let stuff happen before you realize, hey, this don't need to happen? Like, why am I being heartbroken every 10 seconds? Girl, you knew that man was not good. Or my brother in Christ, you knew that chick was not good. It's like, no, because it's like, you know, these situations that you're walking into are not good situations, and yet you've deluded yourself. Like,
sometimes people will often, just because they want what they want, say God, you know, I
ordained
know
this.
this is God. Please fast in prayer. Fast in prayer. Because if the Lord doesn't say anything and you don't hear his answers,
don't move forward.
Sometimes it's a no, sometimes it's not a right now.
Exactly.
That's what overseer always says. Our bishop-elect, she says, if you don't hear nothing from God, sometimes it's a no and not a right now.
Exactly.
We hope you guys come back. Please check us out on our other platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, at
YouTube.
YouTube at Raize the Standard. Can't wait to talk and tell you guys about our experiences. We can't wait to even ask us questions in the comments. Like, we want to hear all your questions.
And this was Raize the Standard.
Raize the Standard. Oh.
I was going to say something, but you. Hey, everybody. Excited. To the beginning. And then
Make the praise
the beginning, and then you can always edit.
We on the video. We doing the
Yes!
Oh no.
We're literally recording. We talking smack about you.
Is that you?
Yes. Oh my God.
So no one is outside.
How?